So we're sitting close to the site where they're going to be building the new stadium for the Lookouts. And much like building a stadium or building a structure, doing an estate plan, you have to have blueprints first, and you have to have things set up first and then build the structure. It's kind of like doing things in a construction zone. We want to talk about the 3 ways to do an estate plan as efficiently and effectively as possible. And when we're going through this, if you like the video, please feel free to put your thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay around to the end because the most important stuff's at the end. So we'll get right into it. So when we're building an estate plan, the very first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we have the right blueprints in place. And so you can work with your financial advisor. Usually the financial advisor will recommend a good attorney to go get these financial documents done. And it's good to talk this through and make sure that you've thought through a lot of contingencies and things. So you get your will done, and then you get your living will done. And when you get your living will done, a lot of times it'll direct the doctors as to what to do if something happens and whether they're going to keep you on a respirator or not. And what we sometimes see is that some people fill in they don't want to be kept alive except in these circumstances, and then they list every single circumstance. So be wary of that because your loved ones will have to get together and talk about it if that's the case. You also want to have your healthcare powers of attorney, and you want to have your financial powers of attorney. And so when you're working with someone on the financial side, and if you don't have those financial powers of attorney, your spouse isn't going to be able to talk to the financial person about anything without that financial power of attorney, because legally we as financial people are not allowed to talk to anyone without that financial power of attorney. So make sure you get that in place. And a lot of times people think about, do we need a trust? So let's talk about reasons you might not need a trust. So anything with a beneficiary document will avoid probate. So if you could put a beneficiary on it, you don't need a trust to avoid probate. So a lot of times people think of needing trusts just to avoid probate. And if you have property, that'll have to go through probate. And so if you just have one house, that might not be too bad. But if you have houses and properties in multiple states, maybe even countries, then that can get really hairy going through probate. So in that case, you may need a trust to help you avoid probate on those things. The things that you want to look at in setting up the beneficiaries is that you want to make sure you have your primary beneficiaries. You want to make sure you have your contingent beneficiaries. Sometimes you'll have a per stirpes designation to allow that to go on to the next generation as well. So you want to think through how you name the beneficiaries. Sometimes you may want to name the trust as a beneficiary. But when you name the beneficiaries, keep in mind that it doesn't matter what the will says, it matters what the beneficiaries are, because the beneficiary documents supersede the will. So if you're naming beneficiaries and you've changed your will, say for a new spouse, but you haven't changed the beneficiary document, then you're going to want to go and change that beneficiary document, because you haven't changed the beneficiary document, then that may cause money to go to the old spouse instead of the new spouse. Your current spouse may not like that very much if you've written her out of, or him out of, inheriting the funds. They're still in the will, but they don't inherit anything because they're not the beneficiary. So you want to keep this in mind when you're naming the beneficiaries. And so you get these blueprints done, and the attorneys are really good at developing the blueprints, but they don't always go through the process of building the structure. Sometimes they'll give you instructions as to what to do, but a lot of times they don't even give you instructions as to what to do. So it's good to work with someone that can help you through that, someone that's more like a contractor to help you build something. And like building the stadium here, I hear that if you build it, they will come. So in the Field of Dreams, they talked about if you build it, they will come, and they built the structure, and then the people came. But if you don't build it, nothing's going to happen. So you got to go through the process of building what you want. So if you build a swimming pool and you don't put any water in it, you can't swim in it. If you have a trust and you don't fund it, you can't do anything with it. So when you're setting up a trust, the reasons you may need a trust would be if you have property in multiple states. It could be that you have a lot of different business interests. It could be that a lot of times we see situations where people are concerned about their kids. Maybe they're afraid they might get a divorce. Sometimes people are afraid that a new husband or new wife is going to take everything of their current husband or wife, and so they want to have a trust for that reason. It could be that you just want to have a trust to benefit the grandkids so that they're taken care of. Or it may be that you have children from multiple marriages and you want to protect your children from the previous marriage just in case your current spouse,
even though he or she says they really love your kids as much as they love their kids, 10 years down the road after you passed away, a lot of times they realize they don't see your kids ever. And so they realize, I love my kids a little bit more. And so when you're looking down from heaven and your current spouse changes all the beneficiary documents to his or her kids, then you could be thinking, why didn't I set up these trusts while I was living to protect my kids?
So you hire a contractor to help you build that trust. And you want to find somebody that's done this before, that may have done this a few times. Anytime you do something for the first time, a lot of times you mess up. So you don't want to go with somebody that hasn't done this before. A lot of times people try to do it themselves and they don't realize what they don't know. And so they mess up. So work with somebody that's done this before. So you want to make sure you have that power of attorney on hand. A lot of times your spouse or children or what have you may not know where anything is. We had a situation just last year where the husband passed away and the wife was already in the memory care unit. The kids didn't know where anything was, and we just happened to have everything on hand and made things very easy for the kids.
A lot of times we'll see situations where someone wants to protect one of their children that likes to spend a lot of money. They're not as responsible with money, and they may name another child as trustee, the responsible one, but that other child may not be so good at saying no to their sibling. And so many times it's a good idea to have a backup trustee, maybe even a corporate trustee, to handle that. So the most important thing that we want to keep in mind is that we fund the trust. We want to make sure that once you have the blueprints that you guys are in the process of building the structure, that's what's really important, is making sure we fund the trust and hire a contractor to help you fund the trust.
Go the distance.
The next step we want to be thinking about is getting the family involved. We may want to have what's known of as a family conference. So having a family conference, we want to make sure we do all the work inside the trust.
You let them know what you have in place so that it can be handled well when something were to happen to you, so they know where everything, all the treasure's buried. It's good to have what's called a letter of instruction that shows where all the treasure's buried, shows all the passwords. And these days it's not easy to remember passwords, and you have two-factor authentication and all these things. It's good to make sure you have all that written down so everybody has access to these things so that it doesn't go awry if something were to happen to you.
So we have the letters of instructions. It's also good to have what's known as a personal property memorandum where you name who gets what. Sally can get the jewels and Johnny can get the Corvette. We've seen situations where someone passes away and say a stepmother puts everything up for sale in an estate sale, and the kids can't get to anything, even the mementos that they just wanted for sentimental value. And so what you want to do is make sure that you list the things that you want people to inherit.
And then the most important thing that we want to make sure of, again, is that we fund the trust. Funding the trust is the very most important step. So we like to think of funding the trust kind of like packing bags for a trip. So let's say we're going to take a trip and say we're going to be going to Puerto Rico. Some people now like to go to Puerto Rico and live in Puerto Rico half the year because they don't have to pay near as much in taxes. So they have a place in Puerto Rico, spend 183 days a year there to keep from paying near as much in taxes. You'll say you're about to head to Puerto Rico, you forget to pack your bags. So you call up your friend Sam and you tell Sam, hey, I forgot to pack my bags. Sam knows where everything is. Sam knows where the key is. Sam, why don't you go in the house? Why don't you, the bags are already on the bed. Please pack my bags for me. You know where everything is. Why don't you just meet me at the airport? So Sam packs your bags, meets you at the airport, and gives you everything that you want for your trip, you think. And so you get on the plane, you head to Puerto Rico, you get to your place in Puerto Rico. What are the chances that Sam's going to have packed everything that you really need for your trip? Probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to have everything packed in those bags. So what you want to do is you make sure that you pack your bags yourself. Make sure that you have everything done yourself. If you set up a trust through the will, that makes it sure that somebody else is definitely going to pack your bags. You set up your trust through what's called a revocable trust. An attorney will call it revocable, but here in the South we say revocable because you can change it. You can put things in and take things out. But if you set it up a revocable trust and you make sure to put everything in there yourself, you fund it yourself, you know where everything is already, if you pack your bags, you have a much better chance of having what you need for your trip. So if you like these videos, please feel free to put your thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends. And as always, stay thirsty for knowledge. And that's all for today.
Is there a heaven?
Oh, yeah. It's the place dreams come true.
Maybe this is heaven.
Good night, Ray.
Good night, John. Hey, Dad? You want to have a catch?
I'd like that.